this summer watching the South American teams play and almost the just beautiful rash way in which they physically approach the game individually and collectively as a team. At times it's very, for lack of a better word, raw, but it's incredibly physical, and they're right on the edge. I do think that this team needs an edge. I do think that this team needs, as Clint Dempsey would say, a little dog in them, right? And I think he can certainly do that, and then couple it with the tactical nous that he is certainly known for. And that can manifest in a bunch of different ways, in terms of high pressuring, in terms of just the actual tackles that you do out there, all of that kind of stuff. I would like to see a much more rugged and raw version of this team. And again, I'm not trying to say you dumb it down. I don't want a caveman version of this US team, because they got plenty of talent, and it doesn't mean that you can't, crave the ball and play with the ball. But that ruthlessness that seems to permeate the South American teams, and obviously has been very successful for a bunch of those teams, I would love for him to instill that in this team, although he has got a very short period of time. Mosse, you certainly know about the mentality and the temperament when it comes to South American players.
Yeah, and Pochettino has an interesting background. He came up as a player, played under Marcelo Bielsa for Newell's Old Boys in the early 90s, helped them get to a Libertadores final. Tata Martino also played on that team. So he's viewed somewhat as a Bielsa disciple, kind of part of the Bielsa tree. He also played for Bielsa, incidentally, in the 2002 World Cup. That didn't go so well. Argentina crashed out in the group stage. Pochettino actually fouled Michael Owen in the box, a penalty that David Beckham converted. England beat Argentina 1-0 in that World Cup. But then his career has veered off in lots of different directions. So I've noticed people over the last couple of weeks struggling to define what type of manager Mauricio Pochettino is. Is he a romantic? Is he a pragmatic manager? He's sort of a bit of a chameleon. We've seen him go different ways throughout his career. But I know when PSG hired him, the French media definitely framed it as if they were bringing in a disciplinarian to whip those pampered stars like Neymar and Mbappe into shape. So he does have that streak to him. And, I think a lot of U.S. fans think that some of these players could use that sort of treatment. So, yeah, he could be a nice fit in that regard.
Somebody over there on the X machine, because you gave him this hire an A- on the pod. I gave it a B+. Somebody took me to task for that, saying how dare I give him a B+ given his resume and his pedigree and everything that he has done. I will say the U.S. in the course of history has certainly had very, very good coaches and managers. I mean, you even look at, say what you will about Jurgen Klinsmann. He had done, great things with Germany and then came to the U.S. You look at Bora Milutinovic, who coached, 5-6 teams ultimately when all was said and done. So the international experience was there. Even if you look at Bob Bradley and you look at Bruce Arena, Bruce Arena is a handball away from getting to a semifinal. So while the sexiness of Mauricio Pochettino's club resume certainly resonates, and I certainly think you can make a case relative to what he has done from a club perspective and who he has coached, the actual quality of coach is all going to be based on what he did at some of these clubs that we're talking about, and all within a club type of situation. This might be a nice little check mark for him to put on his resume, and I do think it's going to be short term. I do think that come the end of 2026, he will certainly have offers. He will always have offers because of who he is, but it will, kind of come to the close. And I think he would be looking at this as a short-term type of situation. Mosse?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You're wearing a 1776 hat. We all know what a proud American you are. At the end of the day, what you care about is results and you want the team to win. But on some level, does it bother you now that the U.S. has an English sporting director, an Argentinian coach, 95% of the players on a national team play their club football in Europe? There is a sense that the U.S. is sort of having to import talent and soccer culture from elsewhere, that it's not really coming from the United States anymore. On some level, does that bother you?
Mosse, you read my mind, my friend, and I am nothing if not honest when it comes to the State of the Union. And I like to think in my personal life and when we talk. So I will absolutely cop to the fact. And this is where I guess it's not irritation. It's much more of a sadness in that we are, going to be celebrating, 250 years of what I feel is the greatest country in the world. But we're also going to be celebrating what has happened to the game on and off the field since 1994. And don't get me wrong, it is unprecedented how far we have come. When you look at men's, women's, when you look at resources, when you look at the leagues, when you look at the success, when you look at the individual players and the pathways and players doing all that. And so you would think in that time that we would not only have created, but also have the confidence to trust a group of coaches out there. And I guarantee that there are coaches out there that have been around, some maybe slogging in American soccer that just haven't had the opportunities for whatever reason. It could be passport, it could be timing, it could be anything. I look at, I don't know, a Peter Vermes or a Jim Curtin or a Steve Cherundolo, or the list goes on and on of actual American coaches and managers. And I guarantee they're looking at this and saying, yeah, okay, Pochettino's great, but is he really that much better than I am? And that's a little bit of ego, and I want that from anybody. But yeah, it does kind of make me sad that when all is said and done, and after all of this progress and all of this evolution, we're going right back to the well of we don't have domestic talent that we trust. And, rightfully, I'm sure somebody's saying, hey, yeah, we did. We trusted Greg Berhalter, and you see how that worked out. And you can argue on both sides of that. But ultimately, if it's Mauricio Pochettino that gets us to the promised land in 2026 and leaves a good impression of what American soccer is, look, we'll adopt him. It's great. He can be an honorary American, and he can celebrate this country that I feel is the greatest country in the world, giving him the opportunity to do something that he hasn't done before. And then who knows, maybe nobody has ever done before. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And not for nothing, but when it comes to Argentine coaches, there's a pretty good well, and there's a pretty good pedigree, and there's something in the water.
I made this point on our last pod that we did with Stu Holden. Everybody should check it out. 7 of the 10 managers in CONMEBOL right now are Argentinian: Scaloni, Bielsa, Lorenzo, Becasés, Alfaro, Batista, and Gareca. It is an incredible stat. Yeah, there's something happening right now with Argentina. Man, I know they're the world champions, but still, it is crazy how many other national teams right now going out and hiring Argentinian managers.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.